One of my favorite stories was in the very, very early days of the XRP ledger. It didn't involve Ripple, the company, at all. It was completely organic. Somebody opened a gateway, which is essentially a company that issues a stable coin in Chinese yuan. And there were remittance flows just immediately. There were flows in both directions. I think part of it might have been capital controls. People who really wanted to get money out of China were counterflows to the remittance flows. And they just found each other. And all of the liquidity was gone immediately, like in a couple of hours, and the liquidity just increased, and it ramped up to about $8 million a day. Since then, that's disappeared, so I don't know if it's because the Chinese government crackdown or just exhaustion, but there was and I think also part of the sort of on-ledger liquidity was kind of not popular today like it was back then. This was kind of during the crypto boom. But it just completely organically, people who wanted to move money into China found people who wanted to move money out of China, and they set up their own like netting system directly on the ledger.
Imagine every major institution in the world able to settle every major fiat asset with every other institution in a compatible jurisdiction in seconds for less than a penny. And I'll say that again in case you missed it. Imagine every major institution in the world able to settle every major fiat asset with every other institution in a compatible jurisdiction in seconds for less than a penny. That is a very, very big deal.
Did you work on the Bitcoin protocol also?
I did a little bit. In fact, that's how Jed found me. I was just kind of finishing up the work that I was doing, and I was looking for something to do next, and I stumbled on Bitcoin, and people were having some problems with mining pools. The mining explosion was just starting to happen, and the software really was never designed to be efficient when you had all these different miners hitting it from all different directions. So people started offering these large rewards in Bitcoins for someone who would solve that problem. I'm like, what are these Bitcoins, and are they worth money? And I realized that it was actually something quite revolutionary that I had stumbled on completely accidentally. And so I made some changes to Bitcoin to make mining more efficient, and then Jed found me through that.
And you earned the bounty?
Yes, I did, actually. I think I earned something like 40 Bitcoins. I wish I'd held them a little longer than I did.
But the question is, will the value of XRP be the same in the private ledgers as it is on the public?
Yes. The value proposition of XRP is that it has these liquidity pools. If it doesn't make sense to isolate something, like there's no place where gold is worth twice as much as it is now, because if there was, people would just bring gold there, and they would they would buy gold somewhere else and they would sell it there. Unless the only way that you can have the value be very different in two places is if there's a lot of friction. And if there's friction, someone will make a business of removing that friction. So I don't see any realistic scenario where XRP has significantly different value unless something's wrong. So like a good example of a case, there was a time where the value of XRP, they called it the kimchi premium, right? Where the value of XRP in some Asian countries was very high, but that was because there were capital controls, right? That was because things were bad. I think that's a sign that something is not going well. The value proposition of XRP is that you can take it to all of the places, right? If I sell you some gold and you say, hey, this gold can only be used in jewelry, you're like, well, that kind of sucks. I don't want that gold, right? The value proposition of gold is that you have access to the entire value proposition of gold. And so I don't see any scenario in which where it makes sense to snip pieces off, again, unless something is wrong.
So RippleNet is a global payments network built by Ripple in over 55 countries with over 120 currency pairs. Key partners include companies like MoneyGram, American Express, Asimo, and so on. This is a modern payment system built on blockchain technology that allows end-to-end payment negotiation, fee discovery, pathfinding, multi-hop payments, and so on. And it's sort of agnostic to how the payment settles. It can settle with a digital asset. It can settle through a traditional Forex desk or through correspondent banking. It's agnostic to how the payment's going to settle and allows financial institutions to choose the settlement method that works best for the particular payment.
It's very hard to decide how the laws apply. And that's why I think you'll see many organizations, Ripple and many others, Coin Center is another, lobbying regulators not so much to change the law, but to clarify it, like to tell us what it is that we need to do so that someone doesn't come down 2 years later and say, hey, what you were doing completely in the open and completely transparently for the last 4 years was illegal from day one, and you should have known that. And we're like, we meet with you like every week about what we're doing, and now you're telling us we should have realized 4 years ago that it was fundamentally and completely illegal? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And so
on that, I will say one thing that I think is going to be huge is micropayments. This gets a little out there for this audience maybe, but I think micropayments are going to sort of take over the world the way packet data kind of took over the world. I think that if you can make small payments very cheaply, and you can make billions of them without a problem, then you don't need anything else. You don't need some special way to make larger payments.
Ripple basically has two portions of the company, RippleNet and RippleX. RippleX is the open source development portion of the company, working on helping people to understand and use blockchain technologies and lower some of those barriers to entry. RippleNet is a payments network. It's built for financial institutions. It has payments infrastructure, end-to-end messaging delivered by Ripple. And XRP is a digital asset, widely used by individuals and companies. It settles on a public ledger in just a few seconds at very low cost.
The federated sidechain feature today. So developers will be able to more easily build bridges to other currencies that will allow this sort of combined world where you can transact on the blockchain that's best for my use case, you can transact on the blockchain that's best for your use case, and we can interoperate. All right. More jokes? Well, no, I think not. They told me I'd get fired if I told, in fact, I'll tell you, I ran one joke by a couple of people at Ripple, and they said, I'm not joking, they said, Monica will literally run up there and stab you. So if you want to see that joke, come see me privately.
Yeah, so I'm at the Flare team, formerly under the Ripple Spring effort, which was like a venture capital kind of arm at the time.
Mm-hmm.
We invested in them a few years ago. I'm very impressed with what they're doing. Flare has built a network using different pieces that they took from different blockchains, Ethereum smart contracts, Avalanche consensus, and XRP settlement. And what they're bringing to the XRP world is essentially a DeFi solution. So they have a fast and reliable settlement mechanism, XRP, and they have ways to essentially bring Ethereum-style smart contracts to the XRP world. They've gotten a lot of exchanges to support their airdrop, which I think is really impressive. That's a very difficult thing to do, and that's going to make it easier for people to just for their token to be sort of distributed widely, which I think helps with keeping the system decentralized and helps with keeping the system reliable. It is fantastic to see companies building systems that add utility to XRP, and I think that the ability to use XRP directly in smart contracts is going to be tremendously useful.
XRP is a universal vehicle of value. This is one of the tools that Ripple is using to solve the international payment challenge. This is a digital asset that moves value between two parties in just a few seconds in a neutral system. It doesn't have an operator. It doesn't have a central counterparty. It's censorship resistant. It's fast and reliable. XRP lives on the XRP ledger, just like Bitcoin lives on the Bitcoin blockchain. The XRP ledger has some very interesting properties, though. It's very cheap, a tiny, tiny fraction of a penny. It's very fast. Payments can be fully confirmed in less than 10 seconds. It's available on over 100 exchanges and traded on over 200 currency pairs. So this is an open source, decentralized technology that provides a digital asset that provides scalability, speed, and low cost. It enables the full settlement of transactions for fractions of a penny.
If you first handle real money, and it's billions of dollars, I think we've all seen some of the disasters in the industry with projects that scaled up to huge amounts of money before they had the technical wherewithal to be able to handle those amounts. I think it's responsible what Flare did, where they built Songbird, and Songbird is handling real money, but it's not sort of their live network. It's like an experimental and test network where you can sort of fail more gracefully. But if it succeeds, then Flare will launch with much more confidence. And this is kind of the same idea. You can build a federated sidechain with some feature that you want to propose for inclusion in the XRP ledger, and you can handle real money with it. You don't have to. But you have a switch that you can flip whenever you're ready to handle real money. And then when you're arguing that feature should be included in the XRP ledger, you have something that you can show that the feature it's not going to make the validators crash. It's not going to slow the network down. It's not going to blow up the fees exponentially. It's not going to eat up memory or CPU. It's going to work. You've proven that it's worked, and you've proven that it can withstand a hostile attack because it's handling real money. And I think that's going to excite developers in much the same way that Ethereum did. This idea that we can innovate not on top of a whole bunch of technical decisions that have already made for us that are irrevocable and that limit us, but in an environment where we can experiment with changing those very bottom technical decisions.
Swift, it's not like Swift is making a whole bunch of money, right? Swift is basically almost like a money neutral thing. It's not like we wanted to take over this lucrative business. We just needed we needed things to work better in order for us to like get people to use a cryptocurrency for payment. And so we built this system, RippleNet, And we looked at all the problems there. We brought the failure rate down. We brought the settlement time down. Even, it's crazy, but end-to-end messaging prior to a payment is revolutionary, which is, it's ridiculous. Like, you go to a bank and you tell them you want to make an international payment. You tell them, how much is this going to cost me? Oh, we don't know. How much money is going to be delivered? Oh, we don't know, because there's no messaging, right? The money is just sort of pushed down a pipe, and eventually something will come out the other side. And a significant fraction of payments that don't fail, still the customer calls to check on the payment because they don't know, because they'll tell you it takes 3 to 6 business days. So when do you call them? I mean, it's just, so we kind of wound up having to fix like the whole payments infrastructure. And I think we built RippleNet, which is a genuinely like better payment technology. We have the XRP ledger, which I think is a genuinely better payment technology.
I think it's probably going to be good that there's going to be a case that's going to get at least some regulatory certainty, although it will probably take a couple of years. I think Ken made an interesting effort to kind of astroturf a little bit and try to get people behind them as defending crypto. But I think something interesting kind of prevents the crypto space from working together on regulation as well as they might, which is that if you perceive yourself as more legitimate than Ken, you don't want to be on stage with them. Whereas if you perceive yourself as less legitimate than Ken, they don't want to be on stage with you. And so everybody is trying to kind of carve out their own little, like, what we did is okay for these tiny little reasons. And
this is David Schwartz, CTO at Ripple now. I'm one of the original architects of the XRP ledger. Giving a shout out to my fellow Kryptoneras. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and it's changed a lot.